When we found the hostage, she didn't call for help. That alone should have set off alarms the moment we stepped into the building. And intelligence officers who'd been held by terrorists for 72 hours, when she sees a fully armed assault team, her first reaction shouldn't be despair, and it definitely shouldn't be calm. But she was calm. So calm it was like she was sitting in her own living room waiting for a food delivery. She just looked at me and said, "You're late." Her voice was soft, so soft that if I hadn't crouched down and leaned in close to her face, hidden under that hood for 3 days, lips cracked and dry, I might not have heard her at all. I thought she was blaming us for being slow. I was about to say, "We're here now. You're safe." Then every light in the building went out. Not a power trip, not a generator failure. This was the kind of blackout where someone in the control room flips every breaker at once. Precise. My night vision kicked in instantly, turning the world into a sickly green nightmare. She was still sitting there, completely unfazed by the sudden darkness. She didn't even blink. She was watching me. There was no relief in her eyes, just something else, like she was waiting to confirm something. "Jason, report." Ryan's voice exploded in my earpiece, tight in a way I almost never heard. "Third floor, hostage located, condition stable." I kept my voice low, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. "Comms are heavily jammed. Noah just lost our signal," Kevin shouted from behind me, his hands already shaking as it checked her pulse. That's when it hit me. We lost our only set of eyes. Noah's drone, not a weak signal, gone completely. From that moment on, the building became our island. 40 minutes earlier, 3:06 a.m., somewhere deep in an old district in the Middle East, the streets were so narrow a Humvee couldn't fit through. Buildings were stacked like blocks, their sand-colored walls looking like rows of silent graves under the moonlight. We were a four-man, Delta Force Digital Assault Team. Call sign, Lumberjack. I read the mission brief. More than 10 times every word burned into my brain. Rescue a U.S. intelligence analyst kidnapped by the Islamic Auxiliaries. Codename Kingfisher. Female. Last known location, 3rd floor of target building. Enemy presence, estimated for 6 lightly armed personnel. No heavy weapons. No ID threat. Fast in, fast out. Those 4 words were bolded in red in the brief. This was supposed to be our kind of mission. Infiltrate. Remove the threat. Bring the asset home. Clean and efficient. We moved in on foot from a staging point kilometers out. Cut through 3 trash-filled alleys. Avoided 2 militia patrols. Ryan was up front. His hand signals textbook clean. I was right behind him, covering the flank. Kevin stayed in the middle, carrying not just his rifle but a heavy medical pack. Bringing up the rear was Taylor, handling comms and electronic suppression, eyes glued to his signal receiver. The approach was smooth, too smooth. When we reached the narrow alley behind the target building gone that almost no one could see, I felt that unease start crawling up my spine like ants. The alley was perfect for infiltration. No streetlights, no cameras, not even a stray dog. It was like it had been left there for us. Lumberjack actual. This is Eagle Eye. Confirming again, thermal imaging on the target building is normal. 1 human heat signature on the 3rd floor. Likely the hostage. Light residual heat on the 2nd floor. No movement. You're clear to enter. Noah's voice came through the comsham in that detached, behind the screen kind of way drone operators have. Copy. Maintain overwatch. Ryan replied. We stacked along the wall. Ryan used a pry bar to silently force open the back door. The lock was new, but the hinges didn't make a sound. In a place like this, a locked door means one of 2 things. Either the building's empty, no one inside, or they've already prepared everything, and they're waiting for you to walk in. Ryan went in first, his aim for tracking smoothly with his line of sight. I followed 2 steps behind. Through the night vision, the pitch-black kitchen on the 1st floor looked like daylight. Half a piece of flatbread Saturday on the stove, hard as stone. A chipped enamel mug held cold tea. Dust floated through the air like ghosts in the NVG glow. Clear, clear. We called it out in sequence. 1st floor empty. The staircase was rough concrete. No handrail. Each step kicked up a bit of dust. If you were careful, we moved up slowly. Every step calculated to avoid unnecessary noise. At the 2nd floor, Ryan raised a fist. Halt. He pointed to the 1st room on the left. The door was slightly ajar. I angled myself against the wall, weapon trained on the gap. Ryan nudged the door open with his foot. The room was small. A bed, a cabinet, a filthy rug on the floor. But what caught our attention was the blanket on the bed had been thrown aside. There was a clear indentation in the pillow. Kevin stepped forward and pressed the back of his hand against the sheet. He turned to us. His expression changed. Still warm. He whispered, "They had just left minutes ago." Someone had been lying there. Ryan scanned the room quickly. A few cigarette butts on the floor, still faintly smoking. The cabinet had been emptied. A headset hung on the wall, left behind in a hurry. Eagle eye. We've got signs of a recent evac on the second floor. You see any movement? Ryan asked quietly. Static. Eagle eye. He tried again. More static. Taylor stepped in, tapped his comms gear, shook his head. Heavy interference. Unknown source. They might have activated some kind of jammer. Ryan went silent for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, I saw the hesitation in his eyes. Protocol says if comms go down or something unexpected happens, you have the authority to abort immediately. But the hostage was upstairs, just a few meters above us. Continue. Ryan decided. I don't know how many times he regretted that call later. We moved up. The third floor had only one room. The door was metal, locked from the outside with a brand new padlock. Too deliberate. A guard planning to run wouldn't bother locking the door behind him. Ryan cut the lock with bolt cutters. The snap of metal echoed through the silent building like a gunshot. We didn't wait. The moment the door opened, we went in. The room was larger than the ones below. The windows were boarded up, leaving only thin slits. Moonlight squeezed through, casting pale stripes across the floor. She was sitting in the middle of the room, tied to a wooden chair. Her hands were bound behind her back with plastic restraints. Her ankles were tied to the chair legs. A dirty black hood covered her head. Kingfisher, Kevin called softly as he rushed over and yanked the hood off. I saw a face covered in grime and exhaustion. Dirty blonde hair tangled into a mess. Cracked lips, dry blood at the corners of her eyes. But she didn't cry, didn't show relief. She just squinted, adjusting to the faint infrared glow of our night vision. Then she looked at me. Kevin cut the restraints. She flexed her wrist bones, cracking softly. She can walk, Kevin said after checking her vitals. A hint of relief in his voice. I looked at her legs. No signs of fractures. She really could walk. I thought it was over. The hardest part was behind us. All that was left was to get her out safely, reach the helicopter, head back to base, grab a hot cup of coffee, and write the report. We're here to take you home. I crouched down, trying to keep my voice calm. That's a habit of many in rescue ops. Keeping the person we're extracting calm matters more than anything. She looked at me. Her eyes, under the sickly green glow of night vision, seemed unnaturally deep. Then she spoke. You're late. The words hit like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading through my chest. I was about to ask what she meant, and then every light went out. Not bulbs failing, the entire building's power grid was cut at once. Even the electronics on our gear took a hit. All that remained in my earpiece was a sharp, piercing static. Noah, report. Ryan shouted into the mic. No response. The signal indicator on the comm panel went from green to red, then died completely. Taylor, what the hell's going on? I turned toward our comms guy. He was hammering the reset button on his equipment. Face pale. The interference is closet too strong. We're completely jammed. I looked at Ryan. He didn't say anything, but his eyes told me everything. We'd lost all external support. No drone, no base, no backup. Just the fear of using this woman trapped in a pitch-black building that might already be surrounded. Ryan reacted fast. Hand, signals quick, precise. Taylor, lock down the stairwell. Kevin, protect the hostage. He and I, set up a defensive position. Stay sharp. Even without comms, we can still get out on our own. His voice was steady as stone in the dark. I took a deep breath. He was right. We trained for this countless times. No eyes, we use our ears. No backup, we rely on ourselves. Kevin pulled a ballistic vest over Kingfisher. It didn't fit well, but it was better than nothing. When she stood up, she swayed for a second. Kevin caught her immediately. I'm fine, just been sitting too long, she said quietly, her voice hoarse. Stay close to me, I told her. She didn't answer, just nodded. Taylor returned to the stairwell and signaled. No movement below. Silence. Complete silence. The enemy had vanished. We started our withdrawal in order. Ryan took point. I covered the rear. Kevin and Kingfisher stayed in the middle. Taylor moved along the flank. We moved from the third floor down to the second. Everything went smoothly. Too smoothly. That kind of smooth made my stomach twist. A trap that clears out all guards, but leaves the most valuable asset behind. That didn't make sense. I glanced back at Kingfisher. She moved steadily in the dark, too steadily for someone who'd been bound for 3 days. She could even see the steps without help. I didn't dwell on it. At that moment, all I wanted was out. We reached the turn between the second and first floors. Ryan could already see the back door on the ground level. It was still open. Moonlight spilled in from the alley outside like a path to freedom. Pick it up, move through fast, Ryan ordered under his breath. And that's when Kingfisher stopped, right in the middle of the stairs. Kevin tugged her arm. Move. She didn't. I rushed forward. About to shiver, she slowly turned her head and looked at me. Moonlight streamed through the doorway, landing perfectly on her face. There was no fear there, no panic, only something I had never seen on a hostage before. Pity. She said softly, now you can't get out either. The moment the words left her mouth, boom, the entire first floor erupted in fire from all directions. Not bombs, pre-planted directional charges it into the walls and doorways. They weren't meant to kill, they were meant to seal every exit. Debris, dust, shattered glass came at us like a storm. Ryan was thrown back by the blast, slammed into the stair railing. Taylor took a chunk of concrete to the shoulder and went down with a grunt. I dove instinctively, throwing myself over Kingfisher. No, she didn't need protecting. She just stood there, unmoving, as debris tore past her. When the blast settled, the air was thick with dust. I couldn't see anything. My ears rang. My mouth tasted like blood and grit. Ryan, Kevin, Taylor, I shouted. I'm here. Ryan called back, voice strained. Taylor's hit. Kevin yelled, I'm good, I'm good. Taylor forced out through clenched teeth. The dust slowly cleared, and we saw it. The first floor was gone. The back door was completely buried under tons of rubble. The windows had been sealed off with reinforced panels. We were trapped, buried alive inside the building. She was right. Ryan's voice came through the dust. Bitter. He looked at Methan, at the woman behind me. We're not getting out. And that's when it finally hit me. Something I'd felt the moment we entered but refused to accept. We weren't here to rescue anyone. We were lured in. This building wasn't a hold in sight. It was a cage. A perfect cage built just for us. No heavy weapons. No large guard force. A weak, helpless host every detail designed to pull us in fast. Then cut the comms. Destroy the exits. Clean. Efficient. Just like the missions we'd run countless times. Only this time the hunter and the prey had switched places. My breathing got heavy. Not from lack of air but from anger. And a deep, suffocating sense of being played. I braced myself against a half-collapsed wall, trying to steady myself. My hands were shaking. Jason, get it together. Ryan grabbed my shoulder hard. There was a cut across his face. Blood from the blast. But his eyes were still clear. Focused. We're not done yet. Kevin was working on Taylor's wound. He cut open the sleeve, revealing a shoulder mangled by the concrete impact. Bone might be involved. We need to get the fragments out ASAP, Kevin said, his voice trembling but his hands steady. I looked at the woman. She stood against the wall, hands in her pockets, calmly watching us scramble, like an audience member at a show that had nothing to do with her. Who the hell are you? I stepped forward, grabbed her vest collar, and slammed her against the wall. My info hung at my side, but honestly, I wanted to hit her. She didn't resist, didn't even flinch. She just looked at me and said, almost gently, I told you were late. Not late in action, late in judgment. You. My voice twisted with anger. Jason. Ryan pulled me back, his step between us. I locked on her. Are you Kingfisher, or something else? She tilted her head slightly. A faint smile touched her lips. Kingfisher died 3 days ago, the same day you got your mission brief. The words hit like ice water. 3 days ago. That was the day she was supposedly abducted. The day we got the assignment. If she was never Kingfisher, then this mission, this was a setup. Ryan said it out loud. His voice was calm, but I knew the hit he'd just taken was as hard as mine. A trap built from bad intel, false intel, and careful planning. And we walked right into it. I let go of her and stepped back. Why trade all this, just to get the four of us? She straightened her collar and looked at me. Because you're worth it. A Delta team captured alive is far more valuable than for dead bodies. Propaganda, bargaining chips, or exchange. You commanders would gladly trade 10 of ours to get you back. She said it like she was talking about the weather. Ryan's fists clenched. I could see the veins pulsing at his temples, but he didn't move. He just took a slow breath and looked at the rest of us. We need to find a way out. I looked at him, then at Taylor, wounded, then at Kevin's face, caked in dust and fear. Finally, my eyes went back to the woman. She was leaning against the wall, that faint little smile still on her lips. She was waiting for us to make a choice. Ryan pulled the three of us into a relatively safe corner and, in the lowest voice possible, started a quick field briefing meant for our team alone. Right now, we have two options. Ryan held up his fingers. First, we find a way to get out of here immediately, blow through a wall, or look for a sewer exit. But if we do that, we could trigger more traps. And once we're outside, we'll be exposed in open ground with no air support, one wounded man, and one unidentified hostage in enemy territory. Our odds. He didn't finish, but all of us knew. Second, we take her with us, I said. But if she was the centerpiece of the trap from the start, then taking her makes us a more obvious target, and she could bring problems we don't see coming. Kevin looked at Taylor's wound and shook his head. Either way, we need to move fast. Taylor needs real medical treatment. Otherwise, that wound's going to get infected. Taylor clenched his jaw, pale as a sheet, but still forced out a grin. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I looked at Ryan. He was waiting for me. I knew he wanted my opinion. I crouched down and used the butt of my rifle to sketch a rough diagram on the floor. If we leave her behind and focus on exfil, the four of us move a lot faster, but all our exits are blocked. We'll need time to find another way out, and the enemy's definitely waiting outside. The second we break into the open, we're target practice. If we take her, I paused. Maybe we can use her. If she's bait they put this much effort into, then she has value to them. Maybe we can use her as leverage force in negotiation. Buy time. Wait for rescue. Are you kidding me? Kevin whispered sharply. Use someone who might be one of them to negotiate with them. She's bait, not necessarily an accomplice. I shot back. The value of bait is that it's still alive and can still be used. If she dies or we abandon her, her whole setup falls apart. Ryan stayed silent for a long time. His eyes moved between me and the woman. She seemed to realize we were talking about her. From several feet away, she lifted her head and looked over at us. I disagree, Ryan said at last. We leave. We leave her behind. Our mission is rescue, not bargaining with the enemy. We don't know who she is. Taking her only adds another variable. We get ourselves out on our own. I looked at him. Ryan, without support, we have no idea how many people are waiting outside, which is exactly why we travel light. He said, his tone final. That's an order. I clenched my jaw. I understood his logic. On a battlefield, uncertainty is the biggest enemy there is. Leave behind a questionable hostage, and maybe we take back some control. But I looked at her. She seemed to have already guessed our decision. She was still leaning against the wall, not trying to run, not trying to beg us to take her along. She just closed her eyes, like she was waiting for an outcome she already knew was coming. I walked over to her. We're leaving, I said. I know. She opened her eyes and looked at me. You're going to leave me behind. That's part of the plan too. What plan? If your people capture you, you'll be traded. If you leave me here and run, I stay here as bait for the next group of fools who come to rescue me. Either way, we lose nothing. I stared into her eyes, calm in a way that was almost terrifying. She wasn't bluffing. She was telling the truth. I tightened my grip on my M4. Ryan's order still rang in my ears. Leave. But my feet felt nailed to the floor. I looked at her face. There was no fear there, no anger, just a numb kind of calm. And suddenly a flood of memories hit me. 7 years ago, Afghanistan, a local interpreter named Amir had been taken by the Taliban after helping guide us through a route. The order came down. No rescue, because he wasn't important. Later, we saw him in the video of his execution. Right before he died, he had the same look in his eyes. Calm, no pleading, like he had known all along how it would end. I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave someone behind again. I'm not going. I turned and looked at Ryan. I'm taking her with us. Ryan's face frownsy. Jason, what the hell are you saying? I said I'm taking her with us. I repeated it, louder this time, more certain. I don't care who she is. I don't care if she's bait. She's alive, and she's trapped in here. If we leave her behind, she's as good as dead. She could be the enemy. Ryan hissed. She could also not be. I fired back. What if she really is Kingfisher? What if she was forced to say all that? What if Kingfisher isn't dead? What if she was threatened into playing along? So we just hand her back to terrorists, go home, and file a report that says, a mission failed, hostage presumed dead. You think you can sleep with that? That stopped him. He looked at me, something conflicted in his eyes. I knew he was fighting with himself too. Kevin and Taylor were both watching us. What started as a tactical discussion had turned into a showdown between me and Ryan. Finally, Ryan let out a long breath. He took off his helmet and wiped dust and blood from his face with one hand. You son of a bitch, he muttered. Then he looked up at me. Take her, but if she makes one wrong move, I'm authorizing you to put her down immediately. You understand me? I nodded. Understood. I turned and walked back over to the woman. She was still looking at me calmly, but now there was something else in her eyes. Surprise. Maybe. Get up, I said. Stay close. Don't try anything. If this is a trap, I'll personally deliver you right back to them. She looked at me, then slowly rose to her feet. The ballistic vest hung loose on her frame. She glanced down at it, then lifted her eyes to mine. You made the wrong choice, she said softly. Maybe. I pulled the charging handle on my rifle, but it's my choice. We started looking for another way out. Ryan swept the second floor with a tactical flashlight. In the back of a storage room, he found a relatively weak partition wall. On the other side looked like an abandoned room in the neighboring building. We breach here, Ryan decided. Taylor, despite his injury, forced himself to pull a small amount of C4 from his pack. Not much, but it should be enough to make a hole. He said weakly. Everyone back, Ryan ordered. We pulled to a safe distance. A muffled blast, the wall blew open, leaving a hole just big enough to crawl through. Dust filled the air as Ryan went first. Clear, move. Kevin helped Taylor through. I gestured to the woman. You first. She didn't hesitate, ducked and climbed through. I went last. On the other side, we entered a neighboring building. It looked like an abandoned shop, collapsed shelves, shattered glass everywhere, but there was one piece of good news. A window that led out to the street. Out the window, onto the street. Then we move east along the drainage line back to the rally point. Ryan laid out quickly. Stay in formation. If we make contact, don't get bogged down. Breakthrough is the priority. I nodded and glanced at the woman. She stood by the window, moonlight casting a long shadow behind her. Ryan smashed the glass with the butt of his rifle. The sound of breaking glass echoed sharply through the silent street. He jumped out first, aimed for sweeping both sides. Clear, move. Kevin and Taylor followed. I nudged the woman forward. As she jumped down, she twisted her ankle, slightly caught her. Her hand was cold. Thanks, she said quietly. I didn't respond. We moved quickly along the wall, heading east. The street was empty. Moonlight stretched our shadows long across the ground. After about 50 meters, something fell off. Too quiet. If they had set this trap, they wouldn't just let us blow through a wall and walk away. They should have had the building surrounded. So why wasn't anyone chasing us? Ryan, something's wrong, I said, over the short-range comms. Our long-range comms were still dead, but we could talk locally. I know, Ryan replied, voice tight. Pick up the pace. We broke into a jog. Our footsteps echoed through the empty street like drums. Stop. Ryan's face shot up, about 30 meters ahead. In an alley, a flicker of red light. Laser sight. Ambush, I shouted. The next second, gunfire tore through the night. X opened up from 3 directions at once. Rounds slammed into the walls around us, kicking up stone and dust. We were surrounded. Find cover, Ryan yelled. We dove for whatever we could. I grabbed the woman and rolled behind a collapsed stone wall. Bullets hammered it, sending fragments flying. I pinned her down, shielding her as best I could. Kevin, Taylor, I shouted over the gunfire. I'm good, Kevin called from the left. I'm hit, Taylor shouted from the right. Where? Ryan barked, like just a grace. I'm okay. I leaned out to return fire. At least 6 hostiles firing from 3 alleyways. Heavy suppression. We couldn't even lift our heads. We're pinned, Ryan shouted. If they flank us, we're done. My mind raced. We needed a way out. Either break their line or find a gap. And then the woman under me moved. She pushed lightly against my chest, signaling me to let her up. Don't move, I growled, but she still lifted her head. The alley on the right, she said, pointing toward a narrow passage beside us. Her voice almost drowned out by gunfire. Only one guard there. At the end it connects to the drainage channel. You can loop around behind them. I looked at her. How do you know? Because I lived here for 3 days. She said, I know these streets better than you do. I hesitated just for a second. Then I looked at Ryan and signaled. Right, alley breakthrough. Ryan nodded. He signaled Kevin and Taylor prepare to cover. I count to 3. You lay down fire left in front of them. I take her right. I told him. 3, 2, 1, go. Ryan, Kevin, and Taylor popped up from cover and unleashed suppressive fire. Gunfire roared, drowning everything else out. I grabbed the woman and sprinted out from behind the wall, staying low, hitting the right side. Rounds snapped past us. I could hear them cutting the air. One hit near my foot, spraying gravel into my leg, burning sharp. I didn't stop. We hit the alley, just like she said. Only one guard. He saw us, panicked, raising his eye was faster. 2 controlled shots from my M for center mass. He dropped. We ran past his body and kept going. At the end of the alley, a dry drainage channel. We jumped in and moved fast along the bottom. They on us. I shouted over comms. We're pulling back. You go. We'll link up. Ryan's voice came through, mixed with gunfire. We ran about 200 meters down the channel. Gunfire echoed behind us, but it was getting farther away. We had broken contact. For now. I stopped, breathing hard. The woman leaned against the wall of the channel, bent over, catching her breath. I looked at her. She looked back. Why are you helping us? I asked. She didn't answer, just watched me, something complicated in her eyes. 10 footsteps above us. I snapped my head up, raising my M4. A silhouette appeared at the edge of the channel, moonlight outlining the figure. Enemy. My finger tightened on the trigger. Jason. It's me. Ryan's voice. It dropped down. Kevin followed, supporting Taylor. Everyone here? I asked. Yeah, Ryan said, breathing hard. We shook them for now, but they'll catch up soon. I looked at the woman. She stood there in the channel, moonlight falling across her face. She wasn't looking at us, was staring toward the far end of the drainage line, where it seemed to lead out of the city. Follow this channel, it leads out, she said quietly. You sure? Ryan asked. She nodded. I'm sure. We moved. After about 10 minutes, we saw an opening ahead leading out to open ground beyond the city. Under the moonlight, the land stretched empty, just wind and the distant outline of the desert. We made it, Kevin said, almost in disbelief. I looked at the woman. She looked back at me. That faint smile was there again. Don't celebrate yet, she said. And a low hum in the sky. Not a helicopter, a drone. A small UAV swept over us, its spotlight snapping on, flooding all of us in harsh light. Under it, a small device blinked red. That's Taylor's eyes widened. A tracking beacon, the woman said calmly. Inside me, planted the day I got here. No matter where I got, they can find me. She looked at me, something like apology in her eyes. I told you, she said softly. You made the wrong choice. My stomach dropped. I looked at Ryan. His face had gone cold. What do we do now? Kevin's voice trembled. The drone circled once, then flew off. But the message was clear. They knew exactly where we were. And this time there wouldn't be any alleys left to run through. We're not getting out, Taylor said quietly. I tightened my grip on my rifle. Another was still away. I looked at the woman. Take it out. What? The tracker inside you. Take it out. She shook her head. It can't be removed. It's under my skin. You need surgery. Then we use a knife. I pulled out my tactical blade. I don't have time to argue. Jason. Ryan grabbed me. What the hell are you doing? I'm saving all of us. I shook him off. She's carrying a tracker. No matter where we go, they'll follow. The only way is to remove it and split up. You take Taylor and Kevin east. I take care in the tracker west. They'll chase the signal. You'll have time to get away. You're sending yourself to die. Kevin shouted. No. I looked at the woman. I'm doing what needs to be done. I stepped in front of her. Are you afraid of pain? She looked at the knife in my hand, silent for a few seconds. Then she raised her head and met my eyes. I'm not. Good. I had her sit down and extend her arm. I cut into the inside of her forearm. Blood welled up instantly. She bit down on her lip, not making a sound. I reached into the wound with my fingers, feeling around. A few seconds later, Terry found it. Something small, hard. I used the tip of the knife to pry it out. A grain-sized microchip, slick with blood, blinking faint red in the moonlight. I placed it on a rock, then raised my rifle. One shot. It shattered. Now they can only track us. I said to Ryan, you go. Ryan looked at me, something in his eyes I had never seen before. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just nodded. Take care, he said. Then he turned, supporting Taylor, and with Kevin beside him, headed east into the desert. Within moments, they were gone. I turned back to the woman. She was clutching her arm, blood seeping through her fingers. Let's move, I said. We've got a long way to go. We headed west, into the desert. The lights of the city faded behind us, shrinking until they disappeared below the horizon. The stars above were painfully bright. The desert wind was cold, cutting across the face like blades. She walked slowly. Her arm was still bleeding. I tore a strip of gauze from my kit and wrapped it as best I could. She didn't speak. Neither did I. We walked like that for about 2 hours. No sign of pursuit. Maybe they'd been fooled by Ryan's trail. Maybe they'd given up. Or maybe they were waiting somewhere ahead. At dawn, we found an abandoned shepherd's hut, small just from mud walls and a half-collapsed roof, but it blocked the wind. I helped her inside and Saturday her against the wall. From my pack, I took the last of my water and a compressed ration bar, handed them to her. She took the water, drank a little, then she looked at Emmy and suddenly smiled. Not that faint, calculating smile from before. This one was real, tired, relieved, human. You know, she said, I never thought an American would risk this much to save me. You're not American, I asked. I am, she said, but my job, I'm used to not being trusted. Your team leader's smart. Leaving me behind was the right call. But you, she looked at me. You're kind of an idiot. I leaned back against the opposite wall and closed my eyes. Yeah, I said. I know. Why did you save me? She asked. I opened my eyes and looked at her. Because I left someone behind once. I'm not doing it again. She didn't ask anything else. We sat in silence. The sun rose. Light poured through the broken roof, warming the inside of the hut. I pulled out the satellite phone. The jamming had weakened after Ryan's team split off. I tried the base. This is Lumberjack, requesting extraction. I said into the phone. I paused. We have the hostage. Alive. Silence on the other end. Then a voice. Copy. Extraction en route. Either 2 hours. I lowered the phone and looked at her. She was asleep now, leaning against the wall. Her face had lost that cold, calculated calm. Now it was just human, exhausted, fragile. I watched her. A strange feeling crept into my chest. We made it out of that building. She was alive. I was alive. Ryan's team was probably safe too. But was it really over? Who was she? Really? How much of what she said was true? Was Kingfisher really dead? Was this whole mission just a trap or part of something bigger? I didn't know. Maybe I never would. 2 hours later, a Black Hawk appeared on the horizon. It sat down in the open ground, rotor wash kicking up a storm of sand. I helped her onto the helicopter. Ryan's team was already there. Taylor lay on a stretcher, leg bandaged but conscious. Kevin was checking his wound. Ryan sat in the corner. When he saw me, he gave a small nod. She sat across from me, leaning against the cabin wall. Her arm was still wrapped in the bandage I'd put on. Amid the roar of the helicopter, she closed her eyes. I watched her. That unreadable calm had returned to her face. Back at base, the medical team took her away. I stood on the tarmac, watching her disappear into a white tent. Then I turned and walked toward the briefing room. Later, I learned the truth. She was never the person we were sent to rescue. Kingfisher really had died 3 days earlier when we received the mission. And she was Kingfisher's colleague. She had deliberately exposed herself, allowed herself to be captured, so the enemy would believe she was Kingfisher, to create a false rescue target for us. But the enemy saw through it. They used her to set the trap. They knew no matter what, we would come, whether she was the real Kingfisher or not. Because that's our rule. We don't leave anyone behind. And she knew that. That's why, at the last moment, she showed me the right way out. Why she let me remove the tracker. Why she chose to trust me. At the final debrief, I saw her real identity. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is, she was intelligence. And she was braver than I'll ever be. She risked her freedom, maybe her life, for a chance that might not have even existed. And me, I just did what I had to do. When I left the briefing room, I ran into her in the hallway. She was in a clean uniform now, her arm still bandaged. She stopped when she saw me. Thank you, she said. You're welcome, I replied. We stood there in silence for a few seconds. Then she suddenly asked, if it happened again, would you make the same choice? I looked at her. I would. She smiled, a real smile this time. Then she turned and walked away. I stood there in the quiet hallway, watching her disappear around the corner. All that was left was the faint smell of antiseptic. I looked down at my hands. There was still dried blood on them. I didn't know whose, hers, Taylor's, or the enemy I shot. Didn't matter. On the battlefield, blood is just blood. You can't tell whose it is. I stepped outside. The Middle Eastern dust burned back across the horizon. The desert in the distance lay silent, like an endless sea. I lit a cigarette, took a long drag. You're late. Her voice still echoed in my head. Yeah, we're always late. Late enough that everything's already happened. Late enough that the truth is buried under rubble and lies. But at least this time, we didn't leave anyone behind. On the battlefield, there are no perfect plans, only people who refuse to give up.